Hi, welcome. In this module, we are going to take a look at the relational database systems and do some hands-on by practicing our SQL query. So what do we have in store? We are going to get introduced to a database called the Northwind database, which comes from a small and medium enterprise resource management system. Then we are going to see how the Northwind database is implemented as a SQLite database. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And how do we connect using Python to it and query it. Later, I'm also going to give you the steps. This is the optional part of the lab. So you're going to have to install your Postgres server and pgadmin in order to be able to query the Postgres database and how Python can be used to connect it. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to now take a quick recap of some of the concepts of the RDBMS database systems that we saw. So the first is the ER diagram, which stands for the entity relationship diagram. A database is essentially a collection of related tables, and each table is corresponding to the physical entity that we saw in the ER diagram. Right, so the entity relationship diagram of a physical database, right, shows the relationship between the tables, and it also shows the cardinalities and keys that connect the different tables. So some of the key database operations is usually referred to by the acronym CRUD, C-R-U-D. So you should be able to know in any database how do you create data, right? How do you retrieve data? How do you update data? And how do you delete data? A data engineer typically needs to be familiar with all data operations in a database, all the CRUD, creating data, retrieving, updating, and deleting, because they are moving data from one source to another. So they may have to be, they will essentially have to be in charge of updating and deleting data as well from one form to another as they transfer. Whereas the data analyst and a data scientist in a typical data science project are, it's important for them to be more familiar with retrieving data for their analysis, right? So they tend to do more of the retrieval data part of the query. So now let's get introduced to this Northwind database. So Northwind database is a small tutorial schema for a small enterprise ERP, enterprise resource planning. So it has entities such as customer, orders, inventory, purchasing, supplier, shipping, employees, and some accounting information. All right, so I have attached the file for the ER diagram, which you can go and take a deeper look at. So this is how a typical ER diagram of a database looks like. So it's important to understand each of these blocks is the physical entity where each attribute refers to the column name, and then we also see how the two tables are connected, right? What is their cardinality? So customers to order, so customer is 1:many. There is a cardinality thing here as well, and you can also see the primary key foreign key relationship that happens here. So this database is originally provided by Microsoft along with Microsoft Access, which is another relational database. So the version that we are going to use today, all the tables from the Microsoft SQL 2000 version has been converted to SQLite 3 and available for download, which is what you have been given as northwind.db. So let's take a look at what is SQLite. So let's understand about SQLite database before we start querying it. Right. So SQLite is also a relational database. So it's a C language library that implements a small, fast, self-contained and fully featured SQL database engine. Its claim to fame is essentially because it is built into all mobile phones and computers, and it comes bundled with several of the applications that we are used to use every day. Right, so some applications are your Dropbox application, which is a file archiving system very similar to your OneDrive, right? So the Dropbox uses SQLite as a primary data store on the client side. Similarly, Airbus right? The aircraft manufacturers also use SQLite in their in-flight software, especially for the A350 family of aircraft. Google is also a very popular consumer of SQLite database, both in their Android cell phone operating system and for the Chrome web browser. SQLite is public domain and free for use for both commercial and private applications. So because of this, it is one of the widely deployed databases. There are over trillions of deployments of SQLite. So now let's look into how do we query a SQLite database using Python via Jupyter Notebook. Let's get started. So we are going to look into querying the SQLite database using Python. So download your starter code Jupyter Notebook and the Northwind.db, which is the SQLite database. In order to connect to the SQLite DB, you need SQLite 3 package. You need to import it as the code shows here. And you have your Northwind.db, which is the database itself. So you connect using SQLite3.connect and give the database name. So here we are assuming Northwind DB is in the same folder as your Jupyter Notebook. In case you are storing it in a different folder, just make sure you change the path of the SQLite DB. Right. So now you have all things set. You can start querying away. So refer to your ER diagram, your entity relationship diagram, which is also given to you as a .png file, and look at what kind of joins you can do to extract information. As part of your assignment, you are required to first do some practice SQL queries. So there are 5 of them to practice your logic. Some of them are on a single table, some require join. So go ahead and look at the ER diagram to identify which are the keys on which you have to join. So other than that, we are so as you look at your ER diagram, I'm sure you are curious to look gain some insights onto your data, right? So note 3 different insights that you would like to query and go ahead and write the SQL query for them as well. All right. So these 2 parts are required as part of your assignment submission. In the next optional part of your assignment, I'm going to walk you through steps of how you can connect and experience another relational database, which is called the PostgreSDB. Okay, so in order to work with PostgreSDB, connect via Python, etc., you need to have 4 steps. So first is you need to install the server Postgres, right? So the URL is given to you. So the Postgres installation also helps you to install an application called pgadmin, which is the graphical user interface, GUI, which helps you to connect to the server, right? So these 2 are independent. So you have your server set up on your machine, then you have your pgadmin, which is the platform which helps you to connect to your database, right? Later, then you also need a library. One popular library is the Scicop G2 library. So you need to install that, and then you can connect to the Postgres database, which is installed on your machine, which is your local host, right, to connect to your database. So let me just walk you through some of the steps when you install your PostgreSQL, right? So there are certain things you have to keep in mind. So while you install your PostgreSQL, you can leave your location, your installation directory as default, right? And then go ahead and click next. Then you will be asked whether you want to install your PostgreSQL server, then pgadmin, stack builder, and command line tool. If you we don't necessarily need the stack builder, so you can uncheck that. So this installation, as it says, it will install the database. So it will convert your machine into a server, and it will also install pgadmin. We'll take a look at what that is, right? It's a platform to connect to your server. And then it will also install PSQL, which is the command line set of tools that are used. So you can connect your database via command line as well. So that is also very helpful. So then you will be also asked what is your data directory. You can leave it as such, right? So in this installation, you will see, I think the version of my Postgres will be different of what you would be installing will be slightly different from the screenshots here. So after that, you definitely have, so every Postgres installation needs to has a super user. The user ID of the super user is Postgres, right? So you can give a corresponding password. Please make sure that you remember the password, right, going forward. So that is extremely important, because else you will not be able to do any operations on your database if it asks for authentication. All right, and then so usually Postgres gets installed in 5432 because of another installation. Right now it shows 5433 on my screenshot, but in your case, if you don't have SQL install, Postgres SQL install, you should your port should say 5432, which is the default port, right? Finally, there might be another password that you required to set to, in fact, just open your PG admin itself, right? So that might be required. So you have to set that, and please make sure you remember that as well. So now after you've done with the installation, so your Postgres SQL is done. So which means your PG admin 4, which is an application which helps us to connect to your PostgreSQL database, is also ready. So go ahead and search for, so for the Windows users, you can go to your Windows button and search for PG admin 4. The Mac users can go on to your search button on the top right corner and search for PG admin and click on it. It should launch on a browser, right? So it will launch on a browser. So this is the page you should be seeing. So now it will ask you for the password that you gave for your Postgres. Sometimes there might be another username password before that, just when you are unlocking your PG admin, right? So depending on the password, make sure that you give the appropriate password. So if you don't give the right password, it's going to say, hey, password authentication failed for user Postgres, right? Postgres is your super user, right? So it will ask you to give the password. So once you get your password, you should be comfortably into PG admin. Okay, so now what we are going to do in PG admin, so some of the servers that you see in this screenshot will not be available to you. You should just see an empty servers tab. Okay, so and you should see PostgreSQL 12 or 13, whatever version that you looked at. Right, so in there, go into PostgreSQL, that server, right? Go ahead and create a database. So call the database. So right click, create database. Then you will see the screenshot here that I am showing you. So type in Northwind, right? And then say save. Okay, so we have created a placeholder for the database. So now we are going to import data into the database. Right, so through PG admin, there are two ways to load your schema, your database schema and data into the Northwind database that you just created. One is through the PG admin. So let's try if you are able to do this, right? So go click on your Northwind database, right click, so if you look at it, you can see the function restore. Right, click on restore. So that will open up this screen, right? And then on that, click on file name. So that will help you to select what file you need to restore from, right? So in your restore file, go and look for the northwind.tar that was also given downloadable as part of your assignment, right? So and then when you click, and then you finally, so here you select the northwind.tar. So this is your .tar file, not your .db file. DB file is the SQLite database, okay? So I have put them into separate folders, but just letting you know. Just select them and then press restore. All right. So that should ideally load the schema and the data into the database. But sometimes there is an error that happens when you load your data through pgadmin. So I'm also going to walk you through an alternate way of how do you do that, right? So here is where we have looked at. So then you do restore, right? So that sort of completes the restoration process. So an alternate way is through the command line using the function pg_restore. So first you go ahead and set your pg password, right, which is your Postgres super admin password. Right, so the XXXS refers to the password that you have set while you installed it, and then you have to essentially run this line, right? So I've also shown you the command line. So you run it either in your command prompt or your terminal based on whether you are a Windows or a Mac user. Right? So what we are saying is, hey, pg restore into my local database which is available in port 5432. So my username is Postgres. Because I've set my password, I didn't have to explicitly give my password here. In my Northwind database, go ahead and restore. So it will ask you a password sometimes, then just give your Postgres database password. So then once you just say enter, right, it should it will show you a lot of scripts, and if it says okay, then it means your data is loaded. So one of these two ways will definitely work for you to load your schema and data into your Northwind database from your northwind.tar file. So once you have loaded the schema and the data into your Northwind database, now you are ready to query the database on your pgadmin platform. So how do you do that? So you open your pgadmin, right? Then if you go into Northwind, expand on Northwind, right, you can just click on the plus symbol to expand it, and then expand on schema and expand on tables. You should see all the tables as part of your Northwind database, right? So right click on the table and do query tool, right? So select query tool. So that will open up this window for you to write your queries in. So you can go ahead and write your queries here, and then click on the play button, which is here, to execute your query. So you can go ahead and run all of the queries, right, that you have written to try it out. All right. So there might be discrepancy between your SQLite database and Northwind database in terms of data. So don't expect it to be synchronous, right? So there might be some slight differences in the data itself. So this example is in order to how do you connect your Postgres database. Okay, so another way to connect, just like your SQLite database, is via Python, right? So in order to connect to Postgres database via Python, we need to install the package scopg2, right? So go ahead and do a conda install of scopg2, and then set connection string on the code, right? So you can create your own Jupyter notebook, import your scopg2, and then do a connection scop.connect. So here the host is not a remote server, it's a local host, because you have installed your SQL database locally, and the port is 5432, the username is Postgres. Provide your password in the term pwd, right? You have to change that and specify the database. It's not going to be Postgres, it will be Northwind. So change that also, right? So this you have to write the code for it. All right, and then you can now essentially start querying. Write your SQL string, and then do your pd.read SQL and give your connection string. So you should be able to get the results of it. Okay, so let me summarize what we have walked through in your lab assignment. So we have gotten introduced to the Northwind DB, right? So it's basically a tutorial schema that we have used. It has some data as well. So we are trying to look at Northwind database from both two relational database perspective. One is your SQLite DB, so query using that. So that is the mandatory part of your assignment, right? I have also given you steps to connect to install your Postgres database, connect to your Postgres database and query. So this is an optional step for you at this point, but it's always good to know how database installations work, right? So if you have the resources in your computer, please do install Postgres as well, right? All right. So we've sort of come to the end of this module. I will see you in the next one. Thank you.